Hello everyone, I'm Grim, a freelance artist, and this week I'm doing a follow-up to my anatomy studying video. Real quick, up top, my voice is a little bit shot because I went to a wrestling event last night. So, I'm going to be a little bit quiet and a little bit sleepy. Anyway, I got a lot of cool questions from the commenter Biomlast on my video about studying anatomy in 2024, so I wanted to go through and answer those. Before I jump into those questions, I want to note that this is a follow-up video. I don't think you'll need to watch that first, but if you want more context, you should go watch it. With that said, let's jump right into the questions. Question number 1. Did I do the studies exclusively on paper or using a tablet, or did I alternate? I mostly worked on my drawing tablet for my studies, since that is what I draw on most of the time nowadays. There were a couple of days that I used my sketchbook instead, just because I either wasn't feeling well enough to be at the computer, or it was easier and faster to use my sketchbook. Next question. What time of day did I do the studies? During the morning, after work, if you do have commission / a 9 to 5, or in the early morning right after getting up? I mostly did my studies in the morning, but that's so I could knock them out without forgetting. I work entirely freelance right now, since quite frankly a 9 to 5 that pays enough to live on would destroy my physical and mental health probably. So, in short, I mostly did the studies in the morning, but I didn't have a strict time. If it had to be later, then it just was. Did you time all your drawings, or just the timed gestures? I only timed my gestures when I was just starting to study a part of the body. I think it's more productive to focus on getting it as accurate as I could muster, rather than trying to know how long it took me to draw something or trying to get as much practice as I can in. It just wasn't intuitive to me to time me learning how to do something. Next question. When I did my anatomy studies, did I have a specific plan on what I was going to do that day? For example, bent torsos so I could figure out the squash and stretch on the belly area. Generally, I did not have a specific plan beyond what part of the body I was studying. I tried to get a nice variety in for my initial untimed studies for accuracy, but after that, I just let the gesture drawing websites pick for me. Noodling around trying to pick specific references would have taken up a lot more time than I had, and let me shy away from challenges more easily. However, at a certain point for drawing hands, I did switch to specifically doing poses with props to mix things up for myself. And the next question. Once I finished my studying for the day, did I do anything else, like going through the Morpho books again and checking for inaccuracies and trying to fix it, or would I just leave it for the next session? Once I finished my studies for the day, I mostly did a bit of verbal reflection on them with my accountability buddy, and sometimes made notes on my drawings. Other than that, though, I focused entirely on making new drawings every time and shooting for accuracy as quickly and best I could on my new attempts. This mindset for studying probably comes from the fact that I studied animation in university, so sometimes it was easier to start a process over again completely fresh, rather than untangle a Gordian knot. Next, when applying this method of studying, for context, the method is to draw 100 of each body part and then move on to the next for the short version. Do I think there would be a meaningful difference if I focused on female anatomy versus male anatomy, since the muscle groups are mostly the same but shaped a bit different? So, I don't think there's a meaningful difference, but also I'm a queer artist who draws androgynous characters all the time. At the end of the day, anatomy is learning a specific pattern of shapes to me and how those different kinds of shapes tend to communicate masculine or feminine presentation in different ways. I think it's more useful in the long run to focus on if you're drawing soft or firm flesh slash fat slash muscles rather than learn quote unquote, this is a male body and quote unquote, this is a female body, because that way, like, I'm able to make far more interesting character designs by prioritizing shapes, appeal, and story. There's always some variation, so you might as well just learn both in tandem and learn what they tend to indicate to a viewer. Did I actually do the studies every day, or did I give myself a break day or a couple just because I couldn't bring myself to do it that day? And Biome Last also wanted to emphasize that even if I didn't do the studies every day, just because sometimes life gets the better of you, as long as I kept at it, it's definite improvement no matter what. I tried to do my studies every day, mostly so that I could be done with it sooner than later, because I'm impatient. But I did allow myself to have a break if I had other plans or my health was giving me trouble. I did my damn best to study every day for my anatomy, but I wasn't needlessly cruel to myself if I needed the break. The next question. When moving from the head/neck to the torso, did I try to connect it first before going into actually studying the torso section and then moving on? Basically doing what they call a pilot drawing, just to see if I could, and then move on to just torso drawings. I'm going to focus in on the neck and torso section for a second on this answer because it was asked specifically about, but part of drawing the neck involves knowing how to connect it to the torso by knowing where the sternocleidomastoid, I hope I pronounced it right, that's the big muscle that goes from your ear to the center of your collarbone, is. So, since I know where that is, I just moved on. I happen to know the collarbone/sternum/neck muscles and bones fairly well, since they connect very intuitively to me and are a very reliable anchor point to the front of the chest and the top of the ribs. So, short answer, I didn't do special drawings to practice the connecting points because those get included in the rest of the body. They're not their own separate thing. The next question, what about rotation and perspective? Did I try drawing and rotating heads from all angles in each drawing session, or would I do 5 fronts, 5 3/4, 5 side, etc., for each session? I just let the random gesture drawings do their thing outside of my initial studies for accuracy. Again, I found it more useful to let randomness pick my challenges rather than get bogged down in specifics, and that also allowed me to do more uncommon head angles that I wouldn't have thought of studying too. And that goes honestly for the entire body. Do I think those pilot drawings that were mentioned earlier would help in any way? Would I repeat that for each segment, such as once I'm done with a head/neck to torso drawing, would I then try to do one for head/neck, torso, pelvis? I don't think they would have helped me personally. I did these studies with years of drawing under my belt already, wanting to refine and improve what I already knew. I think if someone is struggling with connecting things, then those connecting parts that they're struggling with should just be included in the normal studies instead of adding extra steps. The next question. This is our second to last question. When drawing using CSP models for poses and using the 3D models, do you think that posing, then tracing the model first, and then adding the muscle groups on top would have helped me figure out with learning how to connect better the bone/muscle groups? Is that something I did at all? I think It's definitely useful to draw over a model or reference regardless of if it's 3D or not, but I'd strongly recommend to anyone learning anatomy to learn to identify those landmarks themselves on a body without drawing over eventually. It's fine to do if you're really struggling, but learning to be able to see that and look closely will help in the long run a lot more. And with Clip Studio's new feature for drawing on top of models, I will note that I have found it helpful to draw those landmarks onto models that I draw all the time and save presets for specific characters. But again, I come from a background of animation education and freelance art where your time is always money. If it takes extra steps to get the same result, you probably shouldn't do it. And the very last question. Did I put in some time for freehand drawing for myself so I could have some fun and a break from learning the anatomy drawings? This whole time I was doing studies, I was absolutely still drawing for myself. A few of the studies in the previous video you might have spotted were characters of my own for the head drawings, just to make it fun for me. But I draw pretty much every day between doing it for work and for fun. The only thing that really stops me is other plans or wrist pain. I will note, don't be me though. I'm actually a bit insane for how much I draw. Or if you want to be insane like that, take breaks and stretch more often than I do. I speak from experience of needing to buy a wrist brace because of my thesis film in college. So, short answer, I absolutely still drew for myself while doing these studies. And that is all the questions I got from Biome I hope that these gave you some useful insights into more of my process for studying anatomy. And, of course, if you'd like to hear more of my misadventures as an artist, then there is a convenient little subscribe button below. Otherwise, thanks for sticking around, especially with my voice kind of shot. I am legally obligated to cheer as loud as possible for Swerve Strickland and for Anthony Bowens. But anyway, I will see you next week with something. I don't know what that'll be, but if you subscribe, you'll find out what it is. I can tell you it will be art related, though. With that, bye-bye.